Let's talk about building a community from scratch, but not only that, an engaged community. Your community is going to be your everything because they are going to be the ones that are going to be supporting you, cheering you on, and potentially buying from you and being your customer. As such, you need to continuously grow your community, nurture your community, give back to them so that they can also give back to you and buy your products and your services. But not only that, so that you can support them and help them with their problems and their pain points and their challenges too. Once people do social media and once people have platforms, all of them want an engaged community. They want DMs, they want comments, they want likes, they want shares, they want saves, and all this stuff. And I want that too. And what I've realized over the years, having a lot of entrepreneur friends that have really engaged communities, and also mentors that have communities where I'm like, oh my gosh, I love being a part of this community, but also like, how did you build this? I've realized that it actually takes a lot of work and a lot of intention, like everything else. I have a few things I wanted to say, but the first thing before we get into it is a mindset shift I want you to have around your community. The thing I want you to really keep in mind when it comes to your community is that more is not always better. Yes, it's important to grow, but that is actually not the most important thing. You actually need to continuously nurture it and keep your community engaged. Just as an example, when I was first starting out, I had a group of entrepreneurship friends, and one of them only had 300 Instagram followers. With those 300 Instagram followers, she was actually able to make $3,000 steady income in a month. Because really, those 300 people were so engaged, they were so into her stuff. And 300 really engaged people, even if you take, let's say, 10% of that, that's already 30 people. If you have 30 people giving you $100 each a month, that's $3,000. So only having 300 Instagram followers is nothing to be ashamed about. And actually, I would much rather have 300 super engaged people than 300K super disengaged people. The first mindset shift I want you to have is to realize that the size of your community / the followers you have or the subscribers you have, it is not the end all be all. If you have really engaged people, that's great. The second thing I want you to remember is that think about that amount of people in a room. Just pause and think about it, because nowadays I feel like we're so disassociated with the number, and all of us are just really used to seeing influencers or content creators with 10,000 followers or 100,000 or a million or whatever it is. So when we look at our following and if it's only 1,000 people, we're like, that's not enough. I need more. But if you sit down and you think about it, do you even know 1,000 people? Because I don't. And also 1,000 people can fill up an auditorium potentially, right? So think about that number in the actual terms. Like, do you even know that many people? And what does the physical representation of that number actually look like? Is it a lecture hall? Is it an auditorium? Is it a football stadium? Is it one of Taylor Swift's concert venues? Like, what does that actually look like in terms of the physical representation? And then hopefully that will switch your mind to not always thinking that you need more and more and more, and instead you can be grateful and nurture the community you have. That's just my whole spiel that I wanted to say. And now let's dive into how you can actually have an engaged community. So there's two principles I want you to remember. The first one is that it is hard work. It is harder than you think it is. And the second thing I want you to remember is that you need to follow the philosophy where I like to say, do things that don't scale. For all your new followers, can you DM them and message them and be curious and be like, hi, how'd you find out about me? Why are you here? How can I help you? And have conversations with every single person. If you have a huge following, you're not going to be able to do that. But if you still have a small one, you're able to do that. If you're only having like a couple new followers every single day, do things that don't scale. And this is going to pay off massively. An example of this is Sif, who is the co-founder of Arrae. They are a supplement company that is doing really, really well. In the early days, they used to package every single Arrae order. And then instead of having like the generic thank you postcard that was printed, they would take a Polaroid for every single order, sign it, and all their customers got a specialized Polaroid from them, like the co-founders, which is wild. That is not scalable at all, but just goes to show you how much they were willing to invest in their customers and their community. And the other thing that Sif does that I think is so brilliant is that a lot of brands nowadays are so focused on catering to influencers, to content creators. They will bring influencers and content creators on brand trips. They'll do dinners and all these things. But what are they doing for the actual customers? A lot of influencers nowadays get so many PR packages and they don't even use it. They don't even open it. And so instead, imagine if you gave that kind of white glove VIP treatment to your actual customers. that are spending their hard-earned post-tax dollars on your product. What a concept. And they do a lot of trials with their new products. And I think the way they do their marketing and how they run their business is just so great. And so do things that don't scale, do things that are different, get close to your customers, get curious, and pour into them. You can't just post on Instagram and just expect them to engage with you right away, especially if your content is not adding value to them. You need to pour into them so that they can pour back into you. An engaged community does not happen overnight, but you can start today. Remember that wherever you're starting, that's still a good amount of people that are following you, cheering you on, and that's beautiful. And so you want to pour back into it and do things that don't scale. So leverage the Notion workbook down below to figure out your community engagement strategy, as well as some things you can implement. And I want you to read the lesson email because I'm going to talk a little bit about how I try to drum up engagement in my own community, because before I used to have such an unengaged community, and now I started showing up personally. It's gotten so much better. So I wanted to talk about my journey and share that in the email. Once you've done the action items and read the email, I will see you in the next video.